record, so you'll be able to access the recording of this session after the meeting, should you want to. So just some introductions first of all. My name is Claire Carter. I'm from the Access to Justice Foundation. We are here to talk about help accessing legal support scheme. So if there's not a meeting you thought you were in, go and join a different one. But hopefully this is what you're here to talk about. So it's lovely to see you all. Some intros from the team. My colleagues on the call today, Martha De La Roche, who leads our network for justice, my colleagues from the grants team, Ildefonse, our data learning manager, and also Ellie, who is looking after our admin. So what I thought we could usefully do this afternoon is I will run through the guidance and the process and hopefully preempt some of your questions. If you do have questions, can you put them in the chat, please, either as we go or at the end, and my colleague Martha will prompt me to answer them. If we get through that and we've got time for some live Q&A, then we'll do that as well. But I just think with quite a big crowd here this morning, that's probably the fairest way to get through as many questions as possible. If we don't get through the questions by 1 o'clock, we will be finishing at 1 o'clock, regardless of what else is going on. If we have not finished by then, and you have put a question in the chat, we will respond to it by email, and we'll do a transcript with all the Q&As on and send that to everybody. So it's not going to just go to the person who asked the question. So you'll all get all of the questions answered. If something occurs to you after today that we haven't covered today, please just email the grants email and we will respond to that. So hopefully that will be everybody's questions answered insofar as we can. Okay, so I'm going to kick off then by just talking through the guidance, a little bit of explanation, a little bit of clarification around the process. And so if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. Martha will keep an eye on it, and then we'll move to Q&A fairly quickly afterwards. Okay, so help accessing legal support. So what is this about? So we're at the expression of interest stage. So expressions of interest can be submitted now. We have had a couple, and we'll close at 12 o'clock on the 12th of, sorry, the 2nd of August, 12 o'clock on the 2nd of August, of course, to get that right. We'll let everybody know whether you're successful or not. We will be reviewing the EOIs as they come in and quickly after the closing date, and we will be inviting a smaller number of organisations to make a full application. And the window for that is likely to open the following week, 9th of August, and the window for full applications closing on the 6th of September. It may be that those dates change, so to keep an eye on the website, but that's the current plan. We'll then be getting our trustees to work very hard very quickly and make decisions fairly urgently, and plan to get decisions communicated on the application stage by the 19th of September. The reason that we're doing this in such an all-fired hurry is that you may have noticed from the website that the funds need to be spent by the end of March 2023. And I'm really conscious that that's not very long. So hence why it all feels a bit of a rush. Sorry if it does for us too, but hopefully you appreciate that we are trying to give you as much time as possible to spend the money, and that's why the process is being expedited. If anybody needs any assistance with how to account for the funding being spent within that time period, let us know by the grants email and we can provide some support with that. So that's a quick counter through process. In terms of the overview of the fund then, so what we're looking for at the expression of interest stage are organisations who are working to sustain and improve access to early social welfare and family legal advice. And that can be at any stage of the process. So that can be really early on at an initial advice stage, or it could be when people get to court, or even after that, or a combination of those things. It could be that you provide face-to-face services. It could be that you run a telephone helpline. It could be that you provide online services. It could be that you provide assisted digital services. It could be an outreach service. All of those things. We're not expecting anybody to be setting up new shiny projects for this grant. I'm going to keep banging on about the end of March deadline because that's my key message for everybody today. And clearly we don't have the time to be setting complicated projects up, recruiting people and winding things down by next March. So look at what you're already doing, look at where the gaps in your budget are, and that's probably the thing to focus on. We are interested in hearing from organisations who are data curious, and what we mean by that is that a lot of what we do, in fact all of what we do in terms of our grant making, it's obviously there to help people, right? That's the priority, but alongside that we're really keen to help develop the evidence base for why this work matters, and so we're really interested to work with organisations who share that ambition. It may be that you that's just something that you want to be doing and aren't currently, or it may be that it's something you're already working towards, but the appetite for engaging with us in discussions around what we're learning, what's going well, what's not going well, what doesn't work, is really important to us. So the basic stuff: every applicant must be a registered charity, must be based in England and Wales. So this funding round does not extend to Scotland and Northern Ireland. You could be a national charity, you could be a national English charity, a national Welsh charity, you could be covering all of England and Wales, you could be a charity covering a region, a locality, as long as you are based within the jurisdiction of England and Wales. You need to have a track record of delivering this kind of work. So this, again, because of the timescales, not a funding round for organisations interested in dipping their toe into legal advice and support. It must be something that you've already done. So the objectives of the programme: improving and sustaining access to early legal advice and support. We talk in the guidance about avoiding unnecessary court proceedings, but obviously we recognise that sometimes court proceedings are necessary, and people need support with going through that process. You'll see us using the term litigants in person. Please read the definition. We define it very, very broadly. We define it very broadly because we are interested in the early stages of the process as much as we are the end stages of the process. And basically our definition includes anybody that's got a legal problem on the horizon. It's deliberately broad to cover all of those stages. The second objective is around sustaining partnerships and networks. So this is about, if you're an organisation that works, say you work with people who are about to go to court, you may not deliver early legal advice and support, but you may have a partnership with organisations that do. So it's about evidencing that you're an organisation that doesn't work in isolation, and then most of you don't, and talking about the types of organisations that you partner with. It may be that you have a particular focus on a particular community, a particular geographic community, a particular community of people, a particular area of law. You tell us, but we are very keen to work with organisations that have partnerships and networking kind of embedded as part of their culture. Third objective is around delivering services based on user need. So we're interested in working with organisations who listen to the people that they are supporting, and are adapting their services accordingly. So what do you know about demand and need in the area that you're focusing on, and how have you adapted your services to address that? So we've put there in the guidance, how we improve effectiveness and efficiency of digital remote delivery. So how are you ensuring that the right kind of service gets to the right people? So if you're just focusing on face-to-face, that's fine. If you're just focusing on digital remote, that's fine. But if you are working across the piece, how have you adapted your services to respond to that need in order to make the best use of the limited resource that you have? The fourth objective is all about contributing to the evidence base, which I've already mentioned. So organisations that already do this, the kinds of organisations we're interested in, that can be at a range of different levels. That might just be internally, you look at what you're doing and the data and learning to consider how you design your services. It might be that you work at a broader level, or a national level, or as part of a broader partnership to increase understanding of the value of what we do. So those are the objectives, and then just a little bit more on the kinds of organisations we expect to work with, which kind of link to what I've already talked about. Listening to the people that you seek to support, and changing services accordingly. A commitment to learning and building an evidence base. Strong connections with communities, so including in staffing and governance, and working collaboratively with community-led organisations. So we're really looking there for evidence of how you connect with the communities that you're working with. And a commitment to sharing knowledge and best practice where possible, whether that's with other colleagues in the sector or whether that's sort of a broader kind of policy level. So those are the objectives and the kinds of organisations that we're looking to work with. A note about grant size. So we've said that we expect to make grants in the range of 25 to 75,000. That's just a guideline figure. That's not written in stone. So if you think that actually my service, my organisation fits the aims of this programme really well, I think we could easily spend this money by the end of March 2023 to further the aims of the programme, it's fine to apply for more. And don't be too worried at the EOI stage about the figure that you put in. If you get invited to the application stage, we'll have a conversation about grant size. So don't worry too much about grant size at this stage. As I said, there's going to be a two-stage process. That's because we didn't want all of you having to submit a full application form. Filling in the EOI shouldn't take you too long. It's been designed to be simple. Don't look for any traps in there. Hopefully there aren't any. The other things that we are going to take into account, other than the objectives on how we score your applications, are things that we've mostly talked about, but local need and provision. So we may look at some external factors in terms of what else is available and who else is doing what. Value for money. You might be delivering a great service, but if it's the most expensive service in the world ever, we have to think about the entirety of the budget that we have available and whether that's the best use of funds. Track record of partnership working we've talked about, and capacity to engage in learning we've already mentioned. So quick look at the expression of interest form, which is available on the website. Again, hopefully this is pretty straightforward. I know it's a low word limit. That's because we don't want you spending lots and lots of time telling us things that we are not going to take into account. So please don't tell us why legal advice and support matters. We get that. This is what we do. People always do it. It doesn't help. It just clogs up your word count. Just don't do it. We get it. Trust us that we're sold on that. So what we want you to be focusing on in the EOI, tell us a bit about what your experience is of developing legal advice and support, or providing support to people around court proceedings to manage the way through the process. Just a couple of lines. We will also look at your website, we'll look at your annual report, we'll look at your accounts. You don't need to write us an essay on who you are and what you do. Just need to tick that box. In outline, what services do you propose to deliver with the funding? So again, very briefly, areas of law, a couple of words on that. Geographical area, just very briefly. If there are specific communities that you are focusing on, so if you work with a particular client group or a particular geographic area, let us know what those communities are that you will serve, because we're looking to make a range of grants, if you like, cover a range of needs. And then let us know these services that you're providing, how will they respond to the user need, whether that's remote delivery or in person. So how have you designed these services with kind of the person in mind? There's then a question asking you for a couple of examples around your previous experience of learning. So this is where we're kind of sense checking that point around a commitment to learning. So how have you learned something? Was that through an evaluation process, through feedback, through focus groups, through informal networking? It could be all of those things. And also, what was it that you learned through that process? Just a couple of brief examples of how you have learned. Sounds like a really basic question maybe, but it's really important to us to recognise and understand how you're learning things and what it is that you're learning. And then the final question, how have you demonstrated a commitment to data and learning to date? So again, this is about what have you been doing with previous funding? What do you do around collecting data? What do you do around ensuring that you're learning from what you've done? What is your experience doing that? That might be individually as an organisation, as part of the network. Just let us know what your experience is in that question. Okay, so that was a quick canter through the guidance and the EOI form. I'm not going to go through the application form. I know it's on the website. It's only there to give you an idea of what's coming up next, to give you an idea of whether this programme is right for you. Please don't start completing it. It'll probably change. I'm only putting it there now to help you kind of think about, well, is this the right program for me? Which is why I don't want to go through it, because we will do another one of these sessions at the application stage with the cohort of organisations that get invited to apply. Okay, right, I am going to, thanks Martha, Martha is helpfully feeding me questions. Okay, question one, we are a cake rather than a charity, does this preclude an application? You need to be a registered charity. So yes. Can the grant go to matched funding for an existing funding project? Yes. These are great, one-word answers. The grant can go to match funding for an existing funding project. I think that's a very sensible use of this money, given the timescale that we need to be working to. Is the project open to funding further services for those who have no recourse to public funds? Yes. Martha's having to type quicker than I can answer these. I'll use a question I'm going to have to talk a little bit about. Martha's delighted. Could you talk a little bit more about what the data evaluation will be used for? Yes. So predominantly, well, two things, I guess. So what we'll do with the cohort of grantees is we'll bring you all together for those, you know, hopefully people will want to talk to each other about things that you're learning. We've done that with previous grants rounds, I think it's worked really well, so that you can share that learning, and hopefully there's benefit to you as organisations in doing that. So whether that's in terms of how you're adapting your services, how you're designing future services, how you're focusing your fundraising, all of that. So that's the first thing. The thing that I guess we as the foundation focus more on is making a case for future investment. So almost immediately that this money is distributed, we will be starting to make the case for future years funding, and we will be using the learning. So the more that you tell us, the reason that we ask so many questions is because we use that to make the case to Ministry of Justice for future funding. And so that's the predominant use of the data. We will share with you the collated data and learning, so you can use that for your own purposes, and you can also see what we're taking to MOJ, and we'll keep you up to date on the nature of those conversations. So, would working with the criminal justice system be considered as working in partnership? Yes, but just obviously this is a fund focused on social welfare law, legal advice, but if you were, not trying to write your application for you, but if you were working with the CJS because there was a need there to pull out civil legal issues and support people, yes. But we wouldn't be funding criminal legal advice and support. Is there any possibility scope that this project will continue beyond March 2023? Well, that's the $64 million question, Rachel. So I hope so, but I don't know is the honest answer to that. Absolutely, you need to treat this grant as ending at the end of March. The funding needs to be spent by the end of March. I know you've already been saying that already. We are having ongoing dialogue with MOJ about future funding, and as I said, as soon as we get this money out the door from September, we'll be making the case for more funds for longer periods of time. As and when we get any update on the progress of those discussions, I'll let you know. So our intention is absolutely to do everything that we can to make the case to make that happen, but absolutely don't want you to rely on that as an assumption that it will, because I can't. Sorry if that's vague, but that's just honest. How many grants do you envisage making, and how much funding in total are you distributing? In total, we're distributing about 3 million. So how many grants do you envisage making? I don't want to anticipate the nature of the applications we will get in, so I genuinely don't have a fixed idea on that. If we were going to make grants at the 50,000 mark, we would make 60. If we were going to make grants at the 250,000 mark, we would make 12. So we'll just wait and see what the applications say. Possibly a number between those, possibly not. Sorry, that's probably very vague. But I don't want to decide that before we've seen the applications. Will you fund capital expenditure? No, we can't fund capital expenditure. I'm sorry, that should be in the FAQs. If we could add that to the FAQs, that'd be great. I'm afraid we can't do that. Like equipment, equipment is fine, but not a building. Will you be looking at geographical spread of projects? Yes. Yeah. Which is why one of the factors is local need and provision. With reference to partnership working, is there a specific preferred model for partnership working? No. No. You tell us what works. We're trying not to be prescriptive here. If you're the experts, you tell us why you do what you do and why that works best for you. Are MOJ involved in the decision-making process? No. No. It's our board of trustees that will make the decisions. So my dog is getting very excited at somebody walking past the house. If we would like more than 75,000, it is better to choose an ambitious, significant project or several smaller ones, and if the latter, several expressions of interest. Tell us what you need the money for. Don't overthink it. If you as an organisation need £300,000 in order to kind of do what you need to do, then apply for that. Bear in mind that we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We may award grants or make grant offers at a lower rate than we've asked for. I wouldn't worry too much about the amount at this stage. I'm more interested in identifying the types of organisations that we want to work with. We will have more detailed conversations about levels of funding at the application stage. We are clearly going to be oversubscribed for this grants round. So I really wouldn't worry too much about the figure at this point. At this point, it's going to be how do we whittle down however many hundred we get to a manageable number for applications. That's kind of where we're at the moment. Does funding need to cover all areas of social welfare law, or can it be requested for one? It can be requested for one. You don't need to be doing all areas of social welfare law to apply. So for example, immigration, is there particulars of immigration you're willing to fund? Yeah, no. This isn't a level of detail we're going to go into. Does it matter whether areas of law are in or out of scope for legal aid? No, it doesn't matter, other than obviously we're not going to double fund. So we're obviously not going to grant fund work that is eligible for legal aid. But if there is work around legal aid scope that you need funding for, that's absolutely fine. Most of what we fund as an organisation sits around the legal aid scheme. Can you explain more about the data you'll be requiring? Good question. I wish I could. We are still in the process of discussing that with the MOJ. I'm having various conversations about what's realistic to be collected given the short time period for the grant. I will share something on that as soon as I have it. It's likely to look something like numbers of clients, maybe some basic demographic data, maybe some case studies. That's kind of where we're up to. It's for those of you who've had MOJ funding in the past through us, it'll be less than you're used to. Good news for you guys. If you're used to having non-MOJ funding from us, it'll probably be more than you're used to. So less good news for you. Again, sorry to be vague. Once we've got an agreed M&E plan, I'll share it, and I'll definitely have that by the application stage. Does this funding have anything to do with the government's promised pilot personalised advice about community care law, please? No. We provide advocacy and prepare respondents for courses because a person who not legally trained can still apply. Yes, providing you fit the criteria. There's no requirement that you need to be legally trained. Could we tie up with a charity which could then be eligible for the grant? Depends what we mean by tie up. So the application needs to come from a registered charity that fits the eligibility criteria. If you're applying and you don't fit the criteria, you won't get through the EOI stage. Would working with another organisation in a joint bid strengthen the application? No, I think I'm really conscious that we've got a very short time to get this EOI done. Let's not overcomplicate it. If you can just reference the close working you're doing with another organisation as part of your look how great we are at partnerships piece, then great. But don't don't go to the trouble of trying to set up partnerships. It's a very, very, very short funding period. Can I just clarify, you would fund equipment that would meet the grant criteria? Yes, yes. So we can fund equipment that would meet the grant criteria. It's not building. Will evaluation be directed or supported by a team? Yes. Yes, both a team at the Access to Justice Foundation and with MOJ analysts. If offering service across different geographical regions, should we make one EOI covering all, or better do separate for each reason? Please just do one. Please don't send us more than we need to look at. Yeah, one is fine. Sorry, can you clarify, did you say that we need to be legally trained? No, no, you don't need to be legally trained. Confirmation of timings and timeline and charity status. I don't understand that question. Sorry, Martha.
Sorry, Claire, I think there's just been a couple of questions more generally around repeating the timelines and deadlines and the status of the organisation to apply.
Thanks. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't understand that from what you typed to me. So timelines again then. So EOIs to be submitted by 12 o'clock on the 2nd of August. We will review them quickly and open for applications on the 9th of August. We will let you know either way in that week, so you'll hear from us either way in that week. The application window will close on the 6th of September, and we are hoping to let organisations know the outcome of their application around the 19th of September. Is that okay on timelines? Is that clear? Great. And then the question on status, you need to be a registered charity. The advice about partnerships. Okay, so we will prioritise applications from organisations who work in partnership with other organisations. So if you do, tell us about those partnerships in your EOI. Tell us about the other organisations that you work with and why. You don't need to set up a partnership. I'd suggest that you don't. And you don't need to submit partnership applications. So let's try and keep it simple. So single organisation EOIs, just tell us about the partnership working that you have done. We're just interested in working with organisations that like to collaborate. So tell us why you're the best organisation in terms of your ability to collaborate and your track record. Let me know if that's still not clear. Will applicants who are invited to apply get feedback if they're unsuccessful? Yes, but I won't be doing feedback if you're unsuccessful at the EOI round. I'm sorry, we're just not going to have time to do it. What we will do is we will collate some general feedback and post it on the website, because generally speaking, the reason that organisations get funded, the same things tend to crop up. So we'll do some generic feedback at the EOI stage. We will invite a smaller group of organisations to apply, obviously, and because that will be a smaller number of unsuccessful applicants at application stage, then yes, we'll do feedback at that point. Chances are that we simply just don't have enough money. I know that's terrible feedback, but it's true. If we were to apply with another organisation, would this be acceptable? Yes, it's acceptable, but you don't need to. Sorry if this is an obvious question. Please don't apologise. Am I right in thinking this competes with core costs to enable us to meet demand, for instance, across several areas of law? Yes, absolutely. Very good question. Would the fund cover private legal costs if, for example, we were to link with a local solicitor's office? No. This needs to be charitable expenditure, which is why you need to be a registered charity. What is the earliest date the funded work can commence if notified of grant outcome 19th of September? 19th of September. The sooner you can start, the better. So yeah, you can start allocating costs from the date of notification. I'm really conscious that this is a really short funding period, so we're going to try and do everything that we can to give you as long as possible to spend money. Are you planning to award to a spread of size of organisation, or is that not a consideration? It might be. I'm sorry, that's vague. It will depend on the nature of the EOIs. We'll have a look at them all as a cohort and see what the best combination of organisations are to deliver the aims of the programme. That might mean a spread of organisational size, but it might not. What do you think might be the chances of success for applications for applicants invited to submit a full application? Yeah, it's a good question. I've been thinking about this. Maybe 50-50, something of that order, I would imagine. How a backdated cost of 1st of July work? I'm glad somebody's asked me about this and needed to mention that, and I didn't. So I was under the impression that we were going to be able to allow organisations to backdate costs for the 1st of July, but the MOJ told me yesterday this is not the case. I'm going to continue that dialogue with them because I think 6 months is a really challenging funding period, and if that changes, I'll let you know. But if you can assume for now that you can't backdate costs to the 1st of July. I know it did say that on the website, and apologies for that. That was my understanding, but it is not any longer. Can you share any details about the weighting system, if any, you will apply at EOI second stage? So there'll be the objectives will be weighted equally. I can't tell you about the weighting system at second stage because we haven't got that far yet, but I will when we open for applications. Can you repeat the answer about core funding, please? So yes, you can put this towards core costs for that period. End of March, yes, quite right. So is it 1st of March or the end of March? Funding needs to be spent by the end of March 2023, so in this financial year. So yeah, 31st.
Claire, we've reached the end of our questions from the chat, so if anyone else has any questions, we could switch over to live.
Great, go for it. If people want to raise their real hand or their virtual hand, maybe Martha, you could help me spot people. Any other questions? So Lisa, if 100% of our clients are eligible and 86% cannot afford support, can we calculate our R's based on our organisational budget funding gap? Yes. Sorry, that took me a minute. That's more to do with my brain not functioning in heat than the nature of the question. You're welcome. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any, Martha, are you?
No.
Okay, great. Well, either that's all been really clear and helpful, or you're all just completely bamboozled and need to go away and wonder what on earth I was talking about. I'm going to assume the former. Can we assume by partnership you mean a formal partnership? No, no, not a formal partnership. Any kind of partnership will do. you're not just taking referrals from somebody. Yeah, obviously the more sophisticated your partnerships are, the more interested we are in that, but it doesn't need to be a partnership agreement in place. I think some of the most effective partnerships can be informal ones, just people know each other really well and work together really effectively. It's about the effectiveness of the partnership that we're interested in. It's about what difference it makes to the people that we're trying to help, rather than the formal structure. Less interested in that. Could the funding be used to run legal surgeries with solicitors for advice purposes? Yes, as long as that advice was pro bono. Obviously, sorry, this is really obvious, but we're not going to fund work that's privately paying. But if you mean kind of a sort of a pro bono clinic, then yeah, that's absolutely fine. Minimum, maximum amount for bids. Yeah, I'm not going to put a minimum and maximum amount, because I think it's more helpful for you to tell us what you think you need. I've put a range in there, which is hopefully helpful. Maybe it's not. Maybe you prefer hard ceiling. But the reason that I haven't done that is because I think it's really important that we respond to what organisations are telling us about what they need, rather than prescribing. Because frankly, what do we know about how much you need to spend in order to meet the objectives of the programme? So let us know what you need, I think, is the key thing. But again, I'd reiterate, at the EOI stage, I'm not so concerned about the number, more concerned about the kinds of organisations that we are looking at. If the fund is extended beyond March 2023, will this be open for additional organisations to bid for funds? I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'm just such a long way away from having any clue what that might look like. As soon as I do know, then I will share that. Would it cover second tier advice if the advice goes to a support worker assisting an individual in need of advice? I think so, but I'm not entirely sure, Victoria. I'm clear on what you mean there. Do you just want to explain a bit more about what you mean there, Victoria, just to make sure I'm answering you correctly?
Sure. So we have a model whereby it can be so difficult trying to do advice remotely that we would provide advice to a support worker, often in a combination of online, in writing. So the recipient can't access the advice other than probably coming to us, just because it's quite niche, but it's a way of facilitating that. But technically it is second tier because we wouldn't have a retainer with the individual.
I understand, thank you. Yes, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Will you fund triage worker navigator? Yes, as long as the work that they're doing relates to the objectives of the programme and the organisation fits within the criteria. I think it's probably fair to say we're more interested in the whole organisation than the kind of the specific use of the funds. We can get to that, but at this stage, more interested in understanding a bit more about what kind of organisation you are. Can you confirm you are not asking applicants to create a project to bid for, rather to bid to support for ongoing work? Yes, that's right. Please don't create a project. This funding is for 6 months. If anybody thinks that they can set up a project and wind it down again in 6 months, we just need to have a chat about how that works. Please don't do that, unless I'm entirely wrong. Yes, look at where are your gaps? Where are your funding gaps? Where are your budget gaps? What is the work that you're already doing? Where could this money be most effective? And kind of for the objectives of the programme. So I know it goes against the grain not to create shiny new projects, but please don't. Anything else? I can't see any other question. Oh. Can you give some examples of the kind of welfare law you're most interested in? We don't have favourites in terms of the areas that we're most interested in. So any aspect of social welfare law is fine. There's a definition on the website of what we mean by social welfare law. So the areas of law are listed. You're not going to be penalised. You know, if you're an organisation, for example, that just does family law, it doesn't reduce your chances. You don't need to be doing all of them. And we are not more interested in some types of organisations than others. Just let us know what it is that you do and which areas that you cover. So if an organisation works UK-wide, but the bulk of their work are in England and Wales, comes to reply, yes. Yeah, so if you're a UK-wide organisation, but you are looking to fund work that takes place in England and Wales, that's fine. What we can't do is fund work that takes place in Scotland, Northern Ireland, or indeed anywhere else. Okay, I feel like we might be running out of steam here. I don't want to wrap things up early if people have still got questions, but nor do I want to keep you here in front of your laptops when you should all be eating ice creams outside right now. So if you do have any more questions, if things occur to you after today, please do email the grants inbox and we will try and answer. Was that another question? Would it cover advice on recovering compensation under the CICS scheme where it relates to public law? Oh gosh, that's not a question. I knew somebody was going to ask me a question I didn't immediately know the answer to, so thanks. Maybe. Can I come back to you on that, Victoria? I just need to think about it. Sorry, that's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it? Oh, thank you. Lots of nice thank yous. Feel a lot clearer now. Good. I'm glad somebody's feeling clear. This is lovely to hear. Great. Okay, good. Let's wrap it up there then, because I sense that we had it done. So as I say, this recording will be available if like you can't sleep at night and need to listen to me drone on at you, then you know you've got it as an option. We will make a note of all these Q&As and circulate them. So if you can't remember what I said, don't worry, you'll get an email with the question and the answer. If you think of anything else, you email us, and good luck with completing your expressions of interest. I'm really looking forward to seeing them all. It's lovely to see you. Hopefully at some point we will all catch up in person. Martha, am I forgetting anything? Are we good?
We're good.
We're good. Brilliant. Great. Okay, guys, thanks very much and see you all soon. Bye.